YouTube channel. There we are, recording in progress, as if by magic. Let me just take that off my screen. There we are. And we're just gonna, I'm gonna hand over to Melissa. She's gonna tell you how to interact. But just before I do that, once she comes back to me, we're just gonna have a 10-15 minute conversation, myself and Amy, where we're just gonna set it up a little bit for the session. And then I'm gonna open up the conversation to all of you out there for whatever questions you might have for Amy. And we thoroughly encourage you to get involved in the conversation. So Melissa, why don't you take us through how folks can get involved in that?
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Melissa Nelson with you. I'll be moderating the meeting just so we can get familiar with each other. I know a lot of people have used Zoom, but let's just make sure we're all on the same page. If everyone doesn't mind scrolling to the bottom, might look different if you're on your phone, find the chat box at the bottom and you'll open it up and you'll see a little blue bar. It should start with everyone. And just so I know you see it, just pop in your name, maybe where you're zooming in from, or home drop zone, wherever you guys are from, just so I know everyone can see that in there. And once I guess, awesome. Also on that same chat button, you'll see a drop down arrow next to everyone, and you can see everyone's names there. The other important one is to find Maxine's name, because if you have a question, questions will be direct message to Maxine, and we will leave you muted until she calls on you. If she calls on you, feel free to unmute yourself. And then when the question's over, back to mute, and then Amy will take it from there. That's all from me, Maxine. Ready for you.
Fabulous. Thanks very much, Melissa. So, goodness gracious, where to start? Amy Chmelecki, tour de force in skydiving. That one's for your husband. Started when she was 18 and hasn't really stopped since. Over, 20,000 jumps, 17, 18 ratified world records. I can't keep count. Won multiple national championships, a world champion VFS flyer, and a member of the Red Bull Air Force since 1999. Also spearheading the Project 19 vertical world record, which fingers crossed next month is going to add another one to that record, celebrating the 19th Amendment, and also is my co-captain on Highlight Pro Skydiving Team. Not only that, most importantly, next weekend, this chick is going to be inducted into the Skydiving Hall of Fame, which we are stoked to go and celebrate as well. Amy Chmelecki, welcome to Highlight Conversations.
Thanks, Maxine.
You can just nice drop the mic and leave, I think.
Awesome.
So with this session that we've framed up for you guys is really about talking about building skills, building relationships, how to work the hustle and make skydiving your thing. And in order to get that moving, Amy, I'm just going to ask you if you could give us a little bit more background about how skydiving became your everything. We know that you were down in Eli doing a year of fun jumping after you discovered the sport, and at some point you decided that you weren't ever going to leave, and you're still there. So why don't you take us through some of those moments and some of those moments of clarity, perhaps, when you realized that skydiving could become your career?
Well, I actually haven't quite decided that yet. I'm still kind of like in the process of figuring it out. I might leave any day now. I'm ready. No, I don't really have a defining moment, to be honest. And I think that's a big part of my story. I always kind of wondered like what will be next and what's going to happen next for me. At some point, it definitely became very clear that this was it, and I was going to have an epic career in skydiving. But there were so many baby steps. And to be honest, along the way, there were several times when I thought, okay, I need to go get a real job, like go work for my father in New York or something. I had thoughts like that. But things just kind of slowly got better and better over time. And I guess maybe getting hired by Red Bull was a huge moment that happened in 2013, because then it became a lot easier for me to do what I was doing more comfortably with their support. So maybe if there was the defining moment, that was it. But the whole path to get there, geez, it was so much fun, and it was already a pretty epic career at that point.
Where do you think you went from being like fun jumping and working in the bar to actually skydiving became something that you could use as a way to make money? How did you become a coach? Like what did that transition look like?
So I was jumping as much as I can. I would spend all my skydiving tips on jumps the next day. And there were actually, like, I remember this woman asked me to coach her. And I thought, oh, like she was going to pay for my jump, and like she wanted me to teach her. And I thought, oh, wow, that's exciting, you know. And so things like that would happen. And then a big moment was when I met Melissa Nelson. She basically asked me if I wanted to be on the team with her and move to Skydive Chicago, and Skydive Chicago would sponsor us and we would train together. So that was a big moment, because as we all know, skydiving is insanely expensive. So when someone offers to sponsor you, you know, at any level in your career, it takes a big load off of your financial strain of it all. So that was a big turning point for me. And that was, geez, Melissa, what year was that? 2002 or one, or I don't know.
2001 and 2002 for sure. Yeah, it was definitely over 20 years ago.
We were babies.
And so how did you get to that point? Like, why did Melissa come to you and ask you to do that team? Like, what was that hustle? How did you get noticed?
So it was the US Nationals at Skydive Arizona, and I had put together a team. I came back, I was living in Alaska for the summer, just kind of getting out of the Arizona heat, working in a garden, totally not skydiving related, but just I was quite the hippie then. And I came back, I know I did not smell good. I smelled bad, just God, I don't even know why Melissa asked me to be on a team with her. But okay, I came back to Skydive Arizona specifically to do nationals. I loved skydiving, and I almost stayed in Alaska. I was going to get a job doing construction there, and I didn't know anything about it, but I was going to learn. And I thought, I'm just going to give skydiving another year and see how that goes. And I wanted to do the competition. So I did the competition and I met Melissa, and she asked me about going to Skydive Chicago. So she was there competing also. She had a dream of doing an all women's team, which was also always a big passion of mine. So it just really worked out. When she asked me, I was like, yes, let's do it. So.
If I remember correctly, Amy, we became very close. We hardly knew each other before that even started, and it definitely took a life of all of its own.
Yeah, it was for sure an easy step. People actually had told Melissa about me, and people told me about Melissa, and they basically said, like, you girls need to know each other, you're going to get along. And yeah, that team, our team name was the Sugar Gliders. But once someone like invests in you, things become definitely, you know, that kind of door opened up to me. And we were, as a team, the Sugar Gliders were very good at marketing ourselves. At that point in time, it wasn't about social media. That didn't even, you know, it was still like AOL and dial-up connection. And everything was about getting your pictures in the magazine or getting your name in the magazine. So we basically developed this like system where we would kind of create events, and then we'd always make sure we wrote an article, and we always made sure there were pictures getting published. So we would constantly be feeding information to parachutists. And it was a kind of a win-win, because we would be creating an event, promoting the event, promoting Skydive Chicago or Skydive Arizona, whoever was supporting us at the time. And then we would also be promoting us, because we would get our images and the things we were doing in parachutists. And then parachutists loved it because they had content. And once that ball starts, then it really just starts rolling, because people realize people want to brand you with their products if your image is in marketing. It's not exactly, we weren't paying for marketing, but because we were getting in the magazines, the companies were more than happy to help hook us up with gear and little sponsorships. And we started small, but then just like it kind of grew.
It definitely evolved from there. And just so everyone is aware, Maxine's reconnecting right now. So I'm going to hop in just a little bit and ask Amy some questions. We weren't on a team forever. I think that was like 5 or 6 years. I think a little bit about sugar gliders. And then what trajectory did you take after the team?
After kind of like, there was a bit of a crossover. I started doing freestyle at one point, and freestyle was fun because it was a little bit easier to manage just 2 teammates. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been on a team, right? And it's like really hard to be on a team. You're like, there's a lot of personalities, there's a lot going on. So like freestyle, when I started doing freestyle, it was basically me and a camera flyer, and that was just like easier because I basically organized all of the sponsorship and funding for that team. So he was basically working for me. It was Steve Curtis before he knew Sarah was my cameraman. And so we had a good time and we did really well. We won our first year, and our second year we were national champs. And then I really love competition. For me, competition is an excuse to train, and it gives you a purpose, but it also brings out the best in me. It brings out a side of me that I can't otherwise get out, like a focus and an adrenaline. And like, it just gives me, I always get better in competition. I mean, not anymore. I don't want to do it anymore because I'm a bit old. I really, so I shouldn't say that. That is not okay to say.
Thanks.
No, for me personally, I spent about 20 years competing, and of course I would still do it, but just not at that super highly competitive level. But I really enjoyed it because it brought out the best.
You've talked a lot in past podcasts about the flow mind state that you get in when you're in competition. Now that you're no longer in the competition realm, do you still have that joy and that flow in the work that you do now with Rebel or Highlight?
Yes, I do. And to be like completely transparent and honest, like a lot of it now, when you're competing, you aren't often making any money. You're pretty freaking broke. Like I was living in a trailer, and I didn't really have, you don't have extra money. You're broke. You're just kind of scraping by. And I was on like, it's fun because you have all these things, but you're not working a lot because you're training all the time. But so now I am still doing very, very challenging things that are pushing me and making me like, bringing me to the edge of my like creativity and my challenges. And it's all really exciting, but I actually am making money now, which is really like a joy. And I know sometimes people don't want to, you can't talk about that, like I'm making money, but I am, and I'm proud of it. And I think, it's really important, a part of like my journey, because it's not always easy to make money in this sport.
In the current climate, then, for the folks that are here trying to decide whether they want to make skydiving, where, how they earn their living or what have you, do you have any sort of sage advice for them trying to make that transition in today's climate?
Yeah, I think that hustle, has to be there. You really do have to work very hard. But if you're enjoying it, I've always worked really hard. Like it's normal for me to have 12 to 15 hour days. My husband is like exhausted with me constantly. He's like, doing. I warned him that before we got married. I was like, I work 12, 15-hour days and I'm not going to stop. And he was like, okay. But you really have to work hard. But if you're enjoying it, I don't really think it matters. It's almost like also I never work. But I think you have to kind of roll with the punches, and people don't, when something happens, like you get cut from a record or you lose a competition or you get rejected from a sponsorship. Like, people don't really remember those things. People more remember the person who you are and how you treated them. And those things go so much further than just a resume. Like, the resume is important, but who you are as a person and how you treat people is more important. So just like, keep your head up and have fun. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some.
I got one more question for you, because that reminds me, when we had a chat with Eliana, she's talking about, oh, you need to be in the right time at the right place. And I'm a firm believer that it's not a matter of luck. It's because you show up every day, you do the work, and you make sure that you are there when there is a right time and a right place. So as a wrap-up question for me before I open it up to everybody else, Red Bull, getting on Red Bull, I heard on the podcast last week for the first time that you actually approached John DeVore saying, hey, you need a woman on your team. And although they might have been considering it anyway, I just wanted to point that out and ask, and just really just highlight the fact that you went after that, you put the seed of potential growth there and how important that is, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I actually often debate of like, is it all about luck? Like, and I can't deny it. Like, I was born to the parents I was, in the place I was, in the time I was, and like, there's just, it just feels like a lot is luck, but of course there is other aspects that go into it. And I called John in 2012, I think it was, and I had known him. I felt lucky in the fact that I did know him. I met him very early in my skydiving career. I met him when I was 19 years old, and he was forming the Red Bull Air Force. So yeah, I called him and I said, come on, you need a girl. What's up with that? And he said, yeah, we do. I agree. I was like, it's 2013. Why don't you have a girl on the team? Come on. And they said, he basically started hiring me part-time at that moment. And then after a few part-time gigs, they offered me a contract.
Perfect. I love it. Planting the seeds, keep sowing those seeds. All right, that's it from me. We're going to open up to anybody that wants to ask a question here. I have Holly. If you wanted to just popped up a question, would you be kind enough to unmute and have a chat with Amy?
Yes, I know how to unmute myself on Zoom. Amy, I know that you're being inducted into the Skydiving Hall of Fame this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. But I wanted to ask how it felt when you were told that you were actually part of this year's class, if you will. Like, you've given your whole life into this sport, so to kind of hear that that recognition, yeah, how did it feel?
So I definitely struggle. I think probably a lot of people can relate to this in this conversation, but with a bit of imposter syndrome, I always have. I feel like anytime you accomplish great things, people struggle with that. I don't know, maybe some people don't, but I definitely have my whole life. And when they called me, I thought they were going to say they inducted John DeVore. He's the team captain on the Red Bull Air Force. And I have nominated him, and he opened up so many doors for me and so many doors for other people, but he's very behind the scenes. He's not very flashy. So a lot of people don't know who he is anymore, but oh man, anyway, I was kind of like sad because I thought they were going to tell me it was him. And I was so happy. And then they said it was me. And I thought, oh, what? Is that a joke? And so I really didn't believe them for a moment. And, but it feels really good. And it's quite the honor. It kind of feels a little bit unreal that, yeah, I don't really know how to describe it, but I'm looking forward to going there. I'm actually curious to know how I will feel through the process of next week. It happens next. So I leave on Friday for it and my whole family's going. So I'm kind of excited to see what emotions I have, because it feels like that hall, I'm not worthy of that hall at this point in my life. And I know like you guys are going to say, oh, or you're thinking, no, that's ridiculous. She's just trying to be humble. And like, but I don't know. It's a big deal. And yeah, I don't know.
Do you feel, Amy, that I look back at the people in the Hall of Fame, and one of the things that really excites me right now is that it's our peers that are appearing in the Hall of Fame. You know, it's not just the folks from the 70s and the 80s and that, which are all incredibly deserved. And we were at the last Hall of Fame and we were totally fangirling on everybody there. It was a wonderful event, but it's just so satisfying and inspiring to see a different generation. I wouldn't say young because it's not young, but our generation and the generation above, really, like Pete's going to be there, Holly's father, and so many people that we look up to, but it's our peer group as well.
Yeah, I think that's really wonderful. And I think it's a great move on the part of the Hall of Fame committee and the people that are running and making the things happen for the museum, because it's going to bring attention from our age group to the museum. And I think that's really important. So I like that they're doing that. And I actually had talked to them about making a move like that before in relation to inducting somebody like John DeVore. So I was kind of shocked when they asked me, but I knew that a move like that would be good for them. And then it was something that they were really considering. So yeah, it's good to bring it to our generation.
Yeah, can't wait to celebrate everybody this coming weekend. Thanks, Holly, for the question. Melissa, you had a question from Tony if he's not here. Would you be kind enough to put it to Amy in his absence if he's not?
Yeah, let me pull it up really quick. So he was asking, oh, Maxine, it's actually not pulling up for me. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking for that, I do have a question from someone on Instagram. I think they were called HDub. That's all I got. What fears, if any, did you initially have in the sport and how did you overcome them?
My early fears. I was definitely afraid just in general. I think a lot of people go through this. I don't know, but I don't know what was pulling me all the time to the drop zone, but there was something that would pull me there. But like on the inside, I was like, maybe it'll just be raining or windy. And it terrified me. Like skydiving terrified me. It didn't at the very first, but once I did it a few times, I was like, this is terrifying. Like, this is so scary. Once you realize that things actually can really go wrong, but something really just pulled me all the time. So I kept going back. But in general, skydiving through like the student status program was scary for me. And I had to just kind of like push through it. And I guess in general, throughout the sport, more like social anxieties were challenging for me more than just like the physical aspects of the sport. Once I got into it, I wasn't so much scared of skydiving, but like I would kind of have to power through, I don't know, just normal life stuff.
It's funny, a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing in skydiving when you realize all the things that can go wrong, for sure. Do you have any fear may not be the right word, nerves, fear in anything that you do nowadays still, even though you're very experienced? Do you still get those feelings?
Yeah, and I often think about what it kind of means to be afraid. I actually talked to Mel about this once. We were talking, she was like, I don't want to be scared. I'm like, you like being scared. We all like being scared. That's why we're here, right? There's a point where like the fear really, like, I like it. And sometimes when I'm doing jobs, a certain amount of just like, this is hard. Like, I like it. It gives me like, I guess I'm just an adrenaline junkie. I don't know, but it just like, it brings out, the challenge. I love challenges. I've always been drawn to them. But when it gets to a point where I'm like, I don't think I could do this, then it's not fun anymore. And I think it's really important to just like, once I have that feeling, boom, it's done. I'm not going to even do it. And it's one of the reasons why John actually told me he would hire me for Red Bull. He said, one of the first things he said to me when they offered me the contract is, he said, I know that if you can't do something, you're going to tell me. And he said, and that I think it's difficult. We're always looking to hire new young people, but it's scary because we don't want to, what we do is hard. We do a lot of hard things, and we don't want to hire someone that won't say no, and we don't want someone to get hurt, so I think that's really important. Once I get that, like, oh, I'm scared, or like I can't do it, then it's off, game's over.
Do you not feel the peer pressure of being in a team with guys that just will send anything? And I say that in a very complimentary way to them.
I don't actually, because I recognize that someone like Andy Farrington or Jeff Provenzano, they can handle some jobs better than I can. Like, I know that the skill set that they have, the muscle memory, the control over their body and their canopy might be more conducive to, like, they might be able to do something. So I'm totally okay with saying no, where maybe they're going to say yes. And there'll be situations where I'm more equipped to handle jobs as well. But I just, and it's not to say that and that's going to make me impervious to getting hurt on jobs, if it happens, but the moment I'm like, I just don't think, right. It's just a feeling, right? I just get this feeling and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And I'm okay with that. I like my legs a lot.
Well, my ankles, but not as a swooper. So I guess my question would be, if you're doing a demo and it's like, that's a one person, is you, it's like your own performance and you have to rely on your own capabilities. When you're doing something like a vertical world record, do you have a different kind of fear, or if you have a fear at all?
Yes, my fear related to projects like that are basically related to leading the group and being like I know how hard everybody works and what they bring to the record. They've been working on, one can say, their entire skydiving career. And you have this feeling that when you're the person in charge, or equally in charge with a group of people, in this case, there's definitely a group of people that were kind of running it. You're putting together these puzzle pieces and trying to figure out like the strategy that you use to make the record happen, or what people you're selecting, people to go in different places. Previous to that, you've trained everybody and selected the team to train other people. And there's just a lot. And I want it to be good for everybody. So there's a fear of failure for sure. It's always there. But that's also what makes it really fun. Like, it is really hard, and it might not work. And when it does, it's just super exciting. So it's worth it.
Do you feel like, though, that there's a very direct correlation between the amount of fear and then the amount of preparation? I've always felt that the times when I train hard for something, the confidence is there much at a much greater level than it is if you're not properly trained. You know what I mean?
Yes, completely. In a competition or a world record. So, like, you can go into something thinking and feeling like I'm ready for this. And it definitely is, in general, a less stress environment, and probably you're going to have more success. So we've been working so hard on Project 19, and there was a while there where we thought, gosh, can this, like, between COVID, during that break, like, gosh, can this happen? Because a lot changed and it slowed down, but we've been working so hard, and now I'm back in a mindset where I'm feeling really good about it and much more prepared. So yeah, you got to put the work in ahead of time.
And there's not a lot of time now between now and the record coming up in over Thanksgiving, I believe it is, in the end of November. What is your advice to people coming to a big event like that? If there's not enough time to do any more physical training, like, what would they be doing mentally to try and come to the table in the right mindset for something of that level?
So we are taking a very slow and methodical approach to making the record happen. Our skydives are going to start off very, very simple, with very simple tasks. And Dan VC is consulting us step by step on the process. So as long as people are prepared to stick to like really focus on the foundation and trust our process, I think we're gonna really have a lot of success. I think that people should train and keep their bodies awake. So I hope that people will continue, even if they're just going to the tunnel and just keeping their muscles awake, that's going to be really important. So do what you can to train. But then when you come to the event, try and trust us, not people. You can see it if things don't go the way that people want it to. They often are looking at every decision we make from a personal perspective because they don't understand like the big picture that we're experiencing. And they might think like, why would they make that decision? That's didn't work for me. Like, that's not cool, or this, but like, we are really thinking about everything very methodically and doing our best to strategize, you know. And so if they could trust us and just focus on their job, what we're asking them to do, even if it's like, we're asking you to go perform on the bench now, you know, things like that, even though it sucks and it's hard, it is really important. Melissa and I have been organizing records for over 25 years now. So we care deeply, deeply about it, not for money and not for like status. We care about it because we care about helping, like giving women a platform. And people is when it's a mixed record, we just care about like creating this platform for people, giving them an excuse to train, giving them an excuse to chase down sponsors, like I'm not right, you know, and things like that. That's always been our motivation and our drive. So we care about everybody a lot.
And it's good of you. You basically are giving people a platform to work their own hustle, I guess. How different is it being on a women's vertical record compared to a mixed vertical record?
Well, for one, I'm in charge of I'm in charge of the women's vertical world record, where I'm just kind of like facilitating someone else on the mixed vertical world record. So that's a big difference for me personally. But I also organize mixed records. I do the head up. I'm in charge of the head up world record. And they feel actually similar to me when I'm actually the one in charge. But I would say, I don't really like to make generalizations about it because it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum of how women and men perform. You could say that generally men are more aggressive, which could be good or bad, right? Or women are more methodical and tentative, which could be good or bad. So I don't think either of those things are really good or bad. It's just like sometimes for efficiency, you need to be more aggressive or less aggressive or things like that.
Do you mean in the way they fly or in their general demeanor?
Both. Yeah, both. But a lot in the way they fly, you know. A lot of the way they fly, but the plane has more space, that's for sure.
Thankful for small mercies.
Smells a little better, except when I was younger. It didn't smell good when I was younger.
Okay. Melissa, do you have Tony's question?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yep, I got it.
Hit me up. Hit her up.
Tony, he asks, Amy, you have jumped and trained with many of our sport's greatest over the years. Is there anyone in particular that had the most influence on you, both personally and professionally?
I think that, man, there's definitely a handful of people that come to mind. Jeff Provenzano and I went through AFF together. So he really opened up, like I don't know what my life would look like if it wasn't for that like partnership and friendship. You know, it's so fun when you have someone to go through that. I contribute all of my success to my teams. and I've been on lots of them throughout the years. Big teams like Skydive Arizona, little teams specifically like the Sugar Gliders. So all the people involved in those teams has been such a big influence. I've always really, really admired John DeVore. I've mentioned him earlier, and I have nominated him to be part of be inducted into the Hall of Fame. What I really thought was amazing about him is that, when he calls, when the phone rings and I see it's John, I'm like, what? Like, I got a job. It's a job. It's a Hollywood job, or it's, I get so excited. I'm like, what's he got for me? And I just think that's really cool. Like he's creating opportunity for people. And I always wanted to like be like that. And I've kind of tried to model myself and do things like to make things happen for other people. I just love that.
Let me continue on that. The idea I just wrote down, creating opportunity, which really brings us beautifully round to Highlight. Creating opportunity for us on the team to be able to share skydiving as a metaphor for something much bigger than that. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your inspiration for creating this team and what it's giving you in terms of rewards personally and professionally in what we're able to achieve by using skydiving in the way that we are.
Yeah, sure. Highlight has been kind of the pinnacle of my career, because it really, as a woman, it's been a challenge sometimes to have your voice heard. And you kind of have to, I know myself, I think a lot of women can relate. You kind of have to strategize, right? You have to create a strategy to sometimes get your voice heard and even to be allowed in the room sometimes. So it's been like a constant work. And admittingly, sometimes I've had to walk this questionable line, like, am I honoring my morals and values? Like, because I know these guys won't even let me in the room if I openly am offended by the show, the pilot, your tits comment that they just made. I have to play it cool, right? I got to play it cool, or else they're going to tell me to leave and reject me, right? But like, so there's always been this kind of strategy where I'm like, all right, I want to make a difference. When I started skydiving, I remember the Chronicles videos. I don't know if you guys remember these, but it was like a bunch of guys skydiving. And then there were women, but you couldn't even see their heads. It was just like, yeah, but you couldn't see it. And they were naked and they were washing airplanes. And that was the women in the video. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, and I was in college and I just thought it was ridiculous. But I realized like pretty quick that wasn't going to change right away. But I didn't like it. And I still don't like that that's the way it was, but I like to see it change. So bringing it around to Highlight, there also, from my experience, has been a bias against women in sports. I think it's just like a thing. I was raised that way. I was raised to believe that women didn't really have a place in sports the way men did. And I believed it. So I had a bias too. And sometimes I still fight it, right? I still have to resist the urge to fight this bias that maybe a woman isn't going to be as good as a man for a job in skydiving. That sounds ridiculous, but it's just like really built into a lot of people. So oftentimes when a woman makes a mistake in skydiving, it's because she's a woman. And that's just like a feeling you get, right? And you can't change that. Like, I'm never going to change the fact that I'm a woman. And I don't really like that at all. That idea of like, we make mistakes because we're humans. And it's not because we're women. And what's so great about Highlight and what we're doing now is like, we are all very accomplished. If we make a mistake, no one's going to tell me it's because I'm a woman or anyone on our team, right? That's just ridiculous. I feel like we're just like really able to just prove and kind of set that standard within skydiving that like, I think it's very helpful. I know we all have so much experience and we kind of just don't care about little, we're all older and experienced. So I like that. And then in the real world, we get to use the coolness of skydiving and what we do as skydivers to spread a message that's greater than just skydiving, but to spread a message of equality and representation in sports and the coolness of skydiving to promote things that are important to us, like reproductive rights for women and things like that. So skydiving is really cool and people pay attention to it. So
have you ever experienced any of the bias against women? Well, not against women, that's a bad way to say it. We're talking about how people perceive female athletes. You're a female member of the Red Bull Air Force. What's your experience as the female athlete on the team from the public? Have you experienced any of that bias? Has it been a positive, negative thing, bit of both? How does that tally up as the athlete that's very, is very visible?
Yeah, from like on our social media and YouTube channels and things, like I'm the only one on the team that gets like these like deeply aggressive and mean like troll comments. Like it's so weird. Like someone like, she looks like a fat Russian dog. And I was like, what? I'm a person. I can read that. Like, and then, but none of my teammates get it, so I think that's so funny. And I know that other female Red Bull athletes get it as well. What that is, I don't know. It's so bizarre, right? And then I've also had people tell me like, oh, like you only got that because you're a woman. And like they just say that. And I think that's comedy because I'm like, have you seen my resume? What? Like, have you seen what I've done? Okay, like, that's just ridiculous. But yeah, there's definitely I get that a lot. And I communicate with the guys that I'm on the team with, and they do not get things like that. So I find that just fucking comedy. And
that's a lot to handle. I mean, that sounds like a lot to handle.
It's a bit weird, but it also, I could think of it as a compliment because either they're just really mean, nasty people, which they probably are, but when someone makes a comment like that, like they're so far removed from the fact that you're actually a real person that's going to read it, that they're just looking at you as this like untouchable thing. So it's in a way, they are giving me a compliment in a weird way. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't even know if that makes sense to me, to be honest, but I just like, that's how I deal with it. And I pity, they're obviously sad people.
I think some of the best advice I've ever heard on how to deal with trolls is probably from Gary Vee. He talks about handling it with compassion and seeing if that person has got nothing else to do than sit there and troll and what have you, then that must be a very sad situation for them. And then, who knows what's going on in their lives. So that's probably the best advice I've ever heard, and a lot easier to deal with than trying to take it personally. So that's tricky for sure.
Yeah, I don't mind having conversations about any topics as long as I have space or time for it. So some of the stuff that we post for Highlight is we try and stay away from politics in general on Highlight. Promoting the vote is much different than being outright political. But when it comes to reproductive rights, everyone on our team pretty much feels the same way about what's going on in the country. So that is one topic where we've kind of said, like, we have a stance on this. And I've been getting some people basically asking me not to involve such topics in skydiving. They don't think it's a time or place for it, which I understand. People want their weekends to be free of any drama, and they want their weekends to exist in a way where they could just go have fun, and they don't want a woman that's upset to be talking about it or ruining their weekend. And I do get that, because I still love skydiving for all those super fun reasons. But it is like, for me, the opportunity that we have to connect skydiving to a greater purpose, it's the greatest honor. It's the greatest honor to me, and it brings me the most joy. And I feel like there's a responsibility there, and I won't stop so someone can have a good weekend. Like that is inappropriate to even ask, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like I have the most extreme gratitude for the opportunity to have a platform, and I'm sure as hell going to use it. We talk a lot in Highlight about being bold and being brave. That's part of our mission. What does that mean to you, to be bold and to be brave?
I think that it could mean, it doesn't just mean you have to jump out of that airplane. Sometimes it means that you have to say no, that you can't do that job. Like circling back to when I've had to say no twice on Red Bull, where I've saw a landing area I've seen in LZ, and I won't do it. So I think that's really brave. And even though it might not, people might think like, what, you didn't jump out of the airplane, that wasn't brave. It'd be more brave if you do jump. But I think like strategizing ways to continue on healthy and happily is brave. The most brave thing I've ever done in my life is has nothing even to do with skydiving, honestly. It has to do with matters of love, right? And everyone here can relate, all of you guys, right? Like getting your heart broken, falling in love again. Has anyone ever done that? That's terrifying. Whew. Huh.
Yeah. Okay, so Alina, Alina has a question for you. If she can unmute herself.
Hi.
Where are you, sweetheart?
Hi, Amy. Sorry,
Hi.
my video isn't working, but I'm
we
a
got
fairly
you.
new skydiver, and I'm always overwhelmed with how many disciplines we have within the sport. I always feel a pressure to pick one and just kind of run with it. Any advice in that regard? I mean, how do you deal with that as a new skydiver?
Yeah, I think if something is pulling you in a direction, then you should kind of follow your heart and really do what you want to do. If you're unsure, then you certainly can try some different things. I don't know if in your case, if it's like kind of you feel pressure from other people getting pulled in a direction, and that's maybe something you're struggling with, or if it's just like there's so much candy on the shelf, like what am I gonna do, right? Like that's kind of more of a fun problem to have, right? Like there are a lot of options out there. But I think you should train to be on the next women's vertical world record, personally. No, but look, they're all fun. I've done a lot of them, and at a point, they will all blend together. They will all blend together, and it's not going to be like, oh, I'm on my belly, or I'm on my back, or my head down. Like you're just kind of flying. So I think go with where your heart pulls you. And as a new skydiver, I know that like Mel Curtis has a group. I think it's such a great group for new skydivers to kind of like discuss things like this. Mel, do you mind saying the name of your weekly?
Sure. It's the Virtual Skydiving Center. So I'll just put the link in the chat. People can check it out.
And the reason why I brought up Mel and what she does is because if you're ever having trouble processing, like making decisions on directions, she has the answers are in yourself, right? Like I can't really tell you. I think free flying was the most fun. That was the direction that I wanted to take, but it might not be what you want to do. Maybe you want to be a crew dog. Maybe you want to be focused on rigging and less, I don't know. But Mel is really good at helping people figure out where their heart where their heart lies and like bring it out in that. And I think you do a little bit of that in that group, and just that's what she does for a living also. So
love that. Follow your heart. Perfect. Thank you, Alina. Tara, you have a question that's after my own heart about social hurdles. It's an extreme introvert. Tara, you're up.
Hi, Amy. So I'm very new to the sport, and I'm not really socially awkward or anything, but I'm just definitely more of an introvert. And you talked about that a little bit, and I just wondered if you had any advice, especially because I'm not really a spring chicken either. So I'm a little bit older going into the sport. Do you have any advice on how to kind of get yourself in there and try to, get past some of the social awkwardness?
So I've definitely struggled with it. Something about my personality is like, I guess it's just, I don't know, maybe how much I've slept or what I've eaten, but sometimes I'm just like feeling good and I can be social, actually really work a crowd. But other times I am like riddled with anxiety and I'm just like focusing on my breath. And I'm like, am I being an idiot? Did I say something stupid? I don't even know what's going on. So for me, definitely breathing really helps. And listening really helps. And like also realizing that like I still like remind myself all the time, like everybody struggles with insecurities. Every single person struggles with it. Even if they seem like the most confident or got it together person, it's a very natural part of being a human. And so everyone kind of is in the same boat. So like you'll find eventually, you'll find your people in the sport. And yeah, I think also groups or events like the CIS events are generally really good for new young skydivers, because it's the whole design of it is to mentor for like the more experienced girls to mentor the women. And help guide women that are like younger and keep them in the sport. So those kind of events are actually really good. The CIS event at Skydive Arizona, I know personally is really good because I see it every year kind of happen. Yeah, so of course, breathing and then just trying to relax and know that you're gonna stick your foot in your mouth sometimes. You're gonna screw up, but you're also not going to a lot, and it'll all be fine.
Okay, we're getting to the end. Thanks, Tara, for the question. We're getting to the end of our time here, so I've got one more question for Ms. Amy here. Bonus question: what's one of the coolest or most memorable projects that you have been involved in that evolved from an idea or a conversation? To begin with.
So the most memorable, I think Highlight the Highlight Pro Skydiving Team is a good example of starting from a conversation. It was really just like an idea to do a demo, one jump, and to celebrate the centennial of the 19th Amendment. And then just like talking about it, like, hey, well, why don't we do this for it? And so we got together to do some stuff. And then we thought, God, we were just talking and we're like, that was really cool. Like, is there an opportunity here? Like, can we make a team? Do you think there's a market for us? And then it just the team was born from that. And everything we do is just about a bunch of us kind of sitting around talking about our ideas and sharing them and then figuring out how we can make things happen.
Yeah, I have to say, like, our WhatsApp group that we have for the team is extraordinary, because someone put something up, hey, did you see that in the news? We should think about this, we should think about that. And it's just a cascade of extraordinary opportunities and ideas that come from sparking off each other. We're definitely stronger together in conversation. We're up. Oh, that was awesome. Thank you, Amy. You're adorable, even when you say stupid things. Not that you did today.
I know I said a couple.
No, not at all.
Is this going online later? They're gonna get some troll.
It's so good to see everybody's faces. Sorry, we had a little bit of a connection earlier, but we figured it out. And firstly, thank you to Amy, obviously, for sharing your experience and just your heart and your authenticity. You are truly inspiring, and love being on a team with you and learning from you and being your friend. And big thank you to Melissa, who is my wizard behind the curtain, doing all the back office stuff. I pretty much have her on everything with me just because I feel better for it. And thank you, everybody, for joining us in conversation. Let's keep talking and let's keep challenging ourselves to champion each other. And we are going to be back next month with another one of my teammates sat in the hot seat, ready to talk to you about whatever you'd like. And thanks, everybody. Take care and see you soon at a drop zone near you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.